In this video, we're going to be talking about combined work problems. So combined work is when two individuals each have their own individual work rates, however, they're completing a task together. So we use what we call the combined work formula, which is as follows here, and that is going to help us figure out how much time it takes the two workers to complete a task when they're working together. So in the formula, we have T. That's going to be the total time that it takes when they're completing the task together. A is going to be the time it takes for the first worker to complete the job if they were working by themselves. And then B is the time that it would take the second worker to complete the job if they were working by themselves. So let's take a look at a couple examples here. This first one, we're given that worker A, if they were working alone, it would take them 10 minutes to complete the job. So that's going to be our value for A. Worker B, it takes them 15 minutes to complete that same job if they were working alone. So that would be our value for B. And we want to know how long it's going to take them to complete the job together. So we're trying to figure out what C is. Or not C, sorry, T. We're trying to figure out what T is. So first thing we want to do is we want to plug everything we know into our formula. So we have 1 over T, we don't know, so we're going to leave that as a T for now, equals 1 over A is 10, and then plus 1 over B is 15. Now what we need to do here is we need to add these two fractions together. The problem right now is that we do not have a common denominator, and we know that we need a common denominator to add fractions together. So what we need to do is we need to find what we call the least common denominator, or least common multiple of 10 and 15. So what is the least common multiple of 10 and 15? When you think about multiples of 10, it's counting by 10, so 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, etc. Multiples of 15 would be 15, 30, 45, 60, etc. And so the least, or the smallest common multiple that they have is 30. What would we multiply 10 by to get 30? Well, that would be 3. So we're going to multiply top and bottom of 1 over 10 by 3. That's going to give us 30 in the denominator. What do we multiply 15 by to get 30? Well, that's going to be 2. So we multiply top and bottom of that fraction by 2. So now our equation is 1 over T equals 3 over 30 plus 2 over 30. All right, now that we have a common denominator, we can go ahead and add those fractions together. That gives us 5 over 30. And from here, what we want to do is we want to cross multiply, right? So anytime you have two fractions set equal to each other, you can use cross multiplication to help figure out what your answer is. 1 times 30 is 30, 5 times t is 5t. So now we simply need to divide both sides by 5 to get t by itself, and that gives us t equals 6, right? What does this mean? Well, it means that the time that it takes them to complete the job together is 6 minutes. So that is our answer, 6 minutes. Let's take a look at another example. So here we're looking at John and his dad. They are raking leaves. It takes them 6 hours to rake the entire yard together. So that is going to be our value for T. It would take John 3 times longer than his dad if he were to rake the yard by himself, right? So this is where it's a little bit tricky. We don't know how much time it takes John or his dad to rake the yard, but we do know that it would take John 3 times longer than his dad. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a variable to help us out. We're going to use the variable D to represent the time it would take John's dad. And so if D is the time it would take John's dad, then 3D is going to be the time it takes John, since it takes John 3 times as long as his dad. Right, so those are going to be what we're plugging in for A and B, right? We can let A be the time it takes John's dad, and then B is going to be the time it takes John. So putting this all together in our formula, we have 1 over T we said is 6 equals 1 over D plus 1 over 3D, right? Again, we want to add these fractions together, but we need a common denominator. And so what we can do, well, if we have 3D in one of our denominators and just 1D in the other, if we multiply top and bottom of 1 over D by 3, that's going to give us 3D in the denominator there. So we have 1 over 6 equals 3 over 3D plus 1 over 3D. Now we can add those fractions together. 1 over 6 equals 4 over 3D. And then again, just like we did in that previous example, we want to go ahead and cross multiply. 1 times 3D is 3D. 6 times 4 is 24. Divide both sides by 3. So we get D equals 8. So what does it mean? This means that it takes John's dad 8 hours if he were to rake the yard by himself. So John's dad would take 8 hours. And then for John, well, John takes 3 times as long as his dad, so it would take John 24 hours. Which would be a long time, so it's a good thing that they're working together here.